I must say very clearly here that nobody has the right to try to intimidate me or anyone else.
The entire regulatory framework has been captured by a group. This group is manipulating almost all the regulatory framework.
To resurrect the market that people with unblemished records should with professional capability are in charge.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Primetime News Bulletin. I'm Shen Silva.
And I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka. First a look at the stories making headlines tonight.
33 police officers including 4 DIGs transferred. The US government calls on the government to hold elections in the northern province. And a delegation from the UN Human Rights Council arrives in the country.
මේ කොමිෂන් සභාවේ නියෝජිතයන් 3 දෙනා පැමිණීම කරුණු සහිතව අප විසින් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළ යුතු තිබෙන බවයි අපේ ස්ථාවරය.
And now for the stories in detail. A delegation from the UN Human Rights Council arrived in the country today. According to Director General of the Ministry of External Affairs Communications Unit, Sarath Dissanayake, the UN Human Rights Council delegation will observe the conditions in the country following the end of the armed conflict. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the delegation that arrived today includes 3 officials from the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The delegation will be in the country for a week.
In related news, convening a media briefing today, the Jatika Helorume expressed these views on the arrival of the UN Human Rights Council delegation in Sri Lanka.
අපි එදා ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරපු ඒ තීන්දුවට අනුව තමයි මේ මානව හිමිකම්
3 individuals from the Human Rights Council have arrived in Sri Lanka. Even after we rejected the decision on the part of the government, it must answer as to how, if we rejected the US-led resolution, it can approve of the visit of the Human Rights Council delegates here. It is the stance of the Jatika Helorume that we must oppose the arrival of these 3 persons from the council.
ජාතික හෙළවුරුමේ හැටියට අපේ ස්ථාවරය නම් මේ කොමිෂන් සභාවේ නියෝජිතයන් 3 දෙනා පැමිණීම කරුණු සහිතව අප විසින් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළ යුතු තිබෙන බවයි අපේ ස්ථාවරය.
Meanwhile, according to Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the UN, Dr. Palita Kohana, the UNHRC team that arrived in the country today is not a part of the US-sponsored resolution on Sri Lanka that was adopted in March. He made this statement exclusively to News First Shamir Rasulin, who is currently in New York.
The government of Sri Lanka invited the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to send a team, and that happened many months ago. The focus of this team, we assume, will be to explore ways and means of assisting Sri Lanka in advancing Sri Lanka's own human rights policy and humanitarian policies.
Doctor, with regard to the resolution that was passed in March this year, which was sponsored by the United States government, I want to know, this resolution clearly outlines that the views and consultation of the UNHRC team should be obtained on technical assistance on the implementation of the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission report. Isn't it, Doctor?
No, I think it's more important to recognize that the resolution insisted that any assistance provided will be in consultation with the government of Sri Lanka. And we believe that's the right approach to take. The team, which was invited by us, will be there to make recommendations on any assistance that is required. They may decide that there is no need to provide any assistance also.
The last couple of years we saw the manner in which the Sri Lankan government has shown some resistance, stating that they do not want any outside party to be involved in Sri Lanka's decision-making process. I want to know, why is this shift in policy?
There has been no shift in policy. We still say that there is no need for outsiders to get involved in what we are doing, especially when it comes to reconciliation, reconstruction.
Will there be a positive approach at the UNHRC periodic review that would be held later this year on Sri Lanka, Doctor?
We hope so, because Sri Lanka has achieved much in the last 3 years since the end of the conflict. In fact, it would be fair to say that Sri Lanka has achieved much more than any other country in a similar situation.
The U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, Robert Blake, says that the Sri Lankan government must take ownership of the LLRC process. The Assistant Secretary, who is on a short visit to Sri Lanka, addressed the media in Colombo this afternoon.
During his visit, the Assistant Secretary of State held discussions with representatives of the government, the Tamil National Alliance and the civil society representatives.
I discussed in all of our meetings the need for accelerated progress to implement the recommendations of the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission Action Plan. I emphasized the importance of reducing the role and profile of the military in the North and full respect for human rights. I also urged that the Northern Provincial Council elections be held as soon as possible and encouraged an early resumption of talks between the Tamil National Alliance and the government to agree on powers to be devolved to the provinces. We have always supported the LLRC process because this is a domestic process and this is a homegrown process. So what's important is for the government to take ownership of this process and for them to move forward as quickly as possible to implement these recommendations and to implement the action plan and to move ahead on some of these important issues that I raised.
Journalists also questioned the Assistant Secretary of State on the recent attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, and the killing of the U.S. ambassador to Libya.
Well, I think this is a very sad time for all of us in the Foreign Service after the loss of not only Ambassador Stevens, who was a dear friend for many of us, but also 3 of our colleagues who were also killed. So the Secretary and the President, quite appropriately, have ordered and strengthening of security for all of our embassies around the world at this very difficult time. And we will certainly do that in all of our posts in South Asia. I don't see any particular risk to our facilities here in Sri Lanka, but nonetheless, we must be vigilant at this particular time. And again, our hearts and prayers go out to the family and the friends of all of those colleagues whom we lost.
33 police officers, including 4 DIGs, have been transferred with immediate effect. Police headquarters said that 7 senior superintendents of police, a superintendent of police and 6 assistant superintendents of police were among those transferred. A communique issued by police headquarters states that 2 chief inspectors have also been transferred. 11 inspectors and 2 sub-inspectors are also among those who have received transfers with immediate effect. The 4 DIGs who have received transfers are Jayanta Kulatilaka, DWRB Senaviratna, Ravi Vijayagunwardana and MR Latif. Police headquarters stated that the transfers were made based on service requirements.
Who will govern the Eastern Province? Now, this is the question in the minds of everyone across the country today.
The UPFA as a single party secured the most number of votes during the recent Eastern Provincial Council election. However, if the total votes polled by the opposition is considered, it is twice as much as the votes obtained by the UPFA. The UPFA and the ITAC are at the forefront in the battle to form an administration in the East. The UPFA secured 14 seats in the province, while the ITAC secured 11 seats. The UPFA could establish power in the Eastern Province as a single party if the opposition parties do not form any alliances. If the UPFA and the NFF join hands, they will have a total of 15 seats. However, the ITAC could also secure 15 seats if it aligns with the UNP. As things stand, no party has a clear majority to establish power in the Eastern Province. In such a backdrop, the SLMC will be the decisive factor in this tussle for power. We have not reached a decision as yet. We have not refused any invitations as well. We hope to reach an agreement over the weekend.
I spoke to Mr. Ranil Vikram Singh on the phone. I am aware that the UNP have written to the governor, informing the governor that they will support our position. But when I spoke to Mr. Rauf Hakim and discussed the matter with him, he did not tell us that he cannot support us. Up to now, the Muslim Congress has not sent any such communication to us. We have every right to expect that the Muslim Congress will support an opposition coalition.
We have reached a basic understanding on establishing power in the Eastern Provincial Council because then we would have a majority. We have reached a basic understanding. We will conclude our discussions on other issues by Monday. We have already held initial discussions with the leader of the Muslim Congress. Who will the Muslim Congress align themselves with? They have received a lower number of votes than the last time. Therefore, we should join hands with the TNA and not with the government. The SLMC leaders should take the right decision based on the people's mandate and respect the aspirations of the Muslim as well as the Tamil-speaking people. What did the SLMC say during the election campaign? We saw what happened in those elections due to the post-war euphoria. Although there are those who would say that the election results can be overturned through threats, we can see an environment today where none of this will happen. Today we wonder what would happen if we had decided to contest under the betel leaf. We are ashamed to have even spoken of this. We must be given an opportunity to be in power. It is with this expectation that we are engaged in this political struggle. The previous provincial government was a puppet government with a puppet chief minister. However, these are the views expressed by the general public in the Eastern Province.
Hakim said that the aspirations of the Muslim people can only be realized if they contested alone. If he is attempted to join the government, it is against the people's mandate. If the Muslims say that they need a chief minister, the TNA is prepared to provide it. In such a backdrop, if we turn down the TNA and support the government, it will be difficult to resolve the ethnic issue. The people in the East did not vote for the SLMC for them to join with the government. They cast their votes after thinking about the well-being of the Muslim people. If the SLMC disregards this and joins the government, then it will be a historic mistake. If the SLMC makes this mistake, we are prepared to fight against it. We live in a period where a solution should be found to the national issue. We will be able to win our rights only if the TNA and the SLMC join together to form an administration. Every vote cast for the SLMC was a vote against the government. If they join the government after taking our votes, it is similar to betraying us. We believe that they will take a decisive step. The SLMC expects the perks and privileges of the government. However, the people of the East do not expect this. What they want is their rights. Our security would be ensured only if they join up with the TNA. We cannot secure this by joining the government. The government has granted the SLMC ministerial portfolios, but they have not been given their rights.